Hello and welcome back to Nerd Soup's Week of Thrones. Today we will be discussing how Cersei could beat Daenerys. I'm being serious. Before you unsubscribe and X out, hear us out, and then you can leave a comment on how it's not possible, and then you can unsubscribe. Pause for laughter. As unlikely as it seems, there is a way that Cersei can come out on top. I mean, when was the last time you've watched a movie or a TV show where the people you are rooting for had such an enormous advantage? This is like if Rocky was able to take HGH and Apollo Creed could only use one hand. It seems too obvious for Dany just to come to Westeros and absolutely rout the Lannisters and take the crown. If we know anything about Game of Thrones, it's that nothing is ever as it seems.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.
Well, Ramsey, I have been paying attention, so let's break it down. Now, I haven't read any of the online plot leaks or anything like that. This may have some spoilers from the books, because I will be using some book things in this, so if you plan on reading them, you could still watch, but... At the start of Season 7, we have the Golden State Targaryens coming en route to Westeros. Are super teams bad for Westeros? Find out next time. Dany's army is huge and versatile, made up of Dothraki, Unsullied, Martells, Tyrells, and Greyjoys. Oh, and also 3 dragons that grow bigger by the day. Show graphic from part 1. Cersei, on the other hand, has an army that includes the Crownlands, Westerlands, and the Riverlands. Although nothing to laugh at, compared to Dany's forces, they don't have much of a shot. That's why in order to help even the balance, Cersei must align with Euron Greyjoy. And along with Euron comes a very special weapon. Not the one he was bragging about during the Kingsmoot, but something that was introduced to us in the books. Dragonbinder. We aren't sure if this will be introduced into the show or not, but if it is, it will be a complete game changer and will swing the momentum towards the Lannister and Greyjoy forces. Dragonbinder is an enormous horn that Euron claims to have found in the smoking ruins of Old Valyria. Any dragon that hears the horn's haunting scream will obey the horn's master. In the books, Euron reveals the horn during the Kingsmoot, and this is what wins him the crown. In the show, it happens a bit differently, but it is not too late to reveal that Euron is in possession of Dragonbinder. It makes sense as it establishes a new threat while creating a worthy adversary for Daenerys. And imagine adding Drogon to the side of the Lannisters and Greyjoys. I mean, Viserion and Rhaegal are no joke, but Drogon could probably take them out, or at the very least cancel them out. In this scenario, Dany would still have the numbers advantage, but that is not always the determining factor in war. A large portion of Dany's army is new to Westeros. Although she has capable Westerosi minds that know the land, it's hard to convey that knowledge to over 100,000 men that don't even speak the language. Also, a large portion of her army is new to naval warfare. The Martells and Tyrells have formidable fleets, including the Redwyne Fleet, one of the 3 largest in Westeros. Add that to about 1/10 of the Iron Fleet that Yara and Theon took with them, and you have a very solid presence at sea. However, considering the combined forces of the Royal Fleet, the majority of the Iron Fleet, and the Lannister fleet at Lannisport, you'd have to give the advantage to Cersei and Euron. As far as foot soldiers are concerned, it becomes a little dicey. While Dany clearly has the numbers, a lot of her army are either unarmored, uneducated in Westerosi landscape, and Westerosi warfare. In addition, Dany's army lacks great military minds. Sure, Lady Olenna knows the Westerosi politics, but warfare doesn't seem to be her strong suit, and as the head of the largest Westerosi portion of Dany's army, this may cause some problems. Tyrion did a great job defending King's Landing against Stannis, but is no Jaime when it comes to leading an army, although he did get those mountain clans to go off.
Cut off his manhood and feed it to the goats.
No. There are no goats, half man.
We'll make do.
And the Sand Snakes, well... Yara is probably Dany's best military leader, along with Grey Worm, but she and Theon will have their hands full with the remaining Iron Fleet. One of the best military minds in Westeros could join Dany, however. Randall Tarley, father of Samwell Tarley, is considered one of the best military leaders in Westeros, and fought on the side of the Mad King during Robert's Rebellion. He is also a bannerman to House Tyrell. While Dany has the advantage here in a number of soldiers, especially skilled warriors such as the Dothraki and Unsullied, when they're not fighting noblemen in alleyways, it is not as one-sided as it seems.
So the official count for the 2 warring armies is the Targaryen army with approximately 148,000 fighting men and approximately 500 naval ships, and the Lannister army with approximately 67,000 fighting men and 900 naval ships. Now, let's assume that Euron does possess a dragonhorn and can take control of at least one of Daenerys' dragons, and for the sake of making it a fair fight, let's make that dragon Drogon. So Daenerys would still have Rhaegal and Viserion, giving her a 2-to-1 dragon advantage over Cersei and Euron, but we also have to take into consideration the opportunity for Euron to use his dragonhorn. Daenerys will probably land at Dragonstone at the beginning of Season 7, the ancestral seat of House Targaryen and the same island where Aegon the Conqueror landed 300 years prior. We know from the trailers that Daenerys is going to split her army. The Unsullied are being sent west to take Casterly Rock, the Lannister stronghold, and the Dothraki are staying back with Daenerys. We can assume that Yara and Theon are going to aid the Unsullied, giving their affinity for naval warfare. After the Unsullied take Casterly Rock, Yara and Theon will run into their uncle Euron, who has been rebuilding the Iron Fleet on Pike. If Euron was successful in rebuilding the Iron Fleet, making it as formidable as it once was, this will be a crushing defeat for the younger Greyjoys. They're simply outmatched. This is where Yara will meet her end, and Theon will be forced to retreat back to Dragonstone. Now, shifting back to King's Landing, Cersei's first move will be to punish the Tyrells who declared for House Targaryen in Season 6. She will send her brother Jaime and the Lannister army to take Highgarden. Once Daenerys gets wind of this, she will meet the Lannister army on the field with her Dothraki horde, and of course, Drogon. This is a smart move by Daenerys because instead of taking King's Landing while it's vulnerable, she'll be able to exploit the strength of her Dothraki horde by fighting the Lannister army on open field. The Dothraki probably aren't the best soldiers for a siege of King's Landing. Using the Dothraki on an open field is a much smarter tactic. Now, during this Field of Fire 2.0, Daenerys will defeat Jaime's army. They stand no match against 60,000 Dothraki and a dragon. This is when Euron will sail to King's Landing and form his alliance with Cersei. The two parties will be waiting for Daenerys when she returns to take a defenseless King's Landing. This is when Euron will unleash the Horn and take control of one of Daenerys' dragons. This scenario can go a couple different ways. Euron can take Drogon, and at that point, Daenerys' army will become futile. Drogon is the biggest, most powerful of the three dragons and can take out Viserion and Rhaegal in a fight. Then he can just burn the rest of Daenerys' army. I think it would be more interesting if Euron takes control of Rhaegal and Viserion, leaving Drogon as the lone dragon. Imagine how epic it would be if Daenerys must fight off the two mind-controlled dragons on the back of her favorite dragon, Drogon. It would be pretty bittersweet. A lot of people think one of the dragons will fall in this season, so it could be some dragon-on-dragon violence. Even if Euron doesn't possess a dragon horn, you have to account for the common people and the smaller houses. The common folk aren't going to see Daenerys as a liberator, they're going to see her as a conqueror. And that is the propaganda that Cersei is going to push. Look at this evil conqueror, the spawn of the Mad King who bears the Targaryen name, coming to burn your land, resources, and food with her three monstrous dragons. It's really not a good look for Daenerys. So you would have to assume the houses that haven't pledged for one side or the other might want to join House Lannister in their fight against this conqueror. In my opinion, I think it ends in a tie. When you go back to the vision from the House of the Undying and Daenerys walks in the throne room, it's a complete wreck. It's been burned down. So maybe there is going to be some dragon-on-dragon violence, or Daenerys just destroys King's Landing, goes Mad Queen, takes out everybody, destroys the Red Keep, destroys the Iron Throne, and that's what that vision was foreshadowing. The fact that she'll never sit on the Iron Throne because she was the one to destroy it. There's also another scenario where it can also end in a tie, where neither Cersei or Daenerys sit on the Iron Throne. Daenerys may be the spawn of the Mad King, but Cersei has some madness in her as well. I call this the take my ball and go home strategy. Let's take a couple steps back. Let's say that Cersei splits her forces after Daenerys lands on Dragonstone. She gives Jaime half of her army to take to Highgarden, and she takes the other half north of King's Landing, garrisoned somewhere in the Riverlands. So Jaime will take Highgarden and then meet Daenerys on the field on his way back to King's Landing. And after Daenerys successfully defeats Jaime, she will march on King's Landing. The Dothraki, Martells, and Tyrells will attack from the west, while the Greyjoys attack from Dragonstone. Euron will defend King's Landing on the sea. Yara and Theon will battle their uncle Euron on the Blackwater, essentially a battle of the Blackwater 2.0. Once again, they are no match for Euron's Iron Fleet, and they will be easily defeated. Then Euron will turn his forces towards Daenerys, and he will defend King's Landing while Cersei sends her reinforcements from the north, similar to what Tywin did during the first Battle of the Blackwater in Season 2. This is where the wildfire comes into play. Before the Mad King was killed by Jaime Lannister, he filled King's Landing with thousands of caches of wildfire. He planned to burn down the city before Robert Baratheon could sack it. We've already seen Cersei use the Mad King's wildfire in Season 6 when she blows up the Sept of Baelor, killing the Sparrows, Marjorie, and Loras Tyrell. Even Kevin Lannister was killed. Remember him? Tywin's brother? Cersei can trick Daenerys by leaving King's Landing vulnerable, bringing half of her army north, leaving Jaime to take Highgarden, baiting Daenerys' army, and then setting off the greatest trap known to man, destroying the entire city with the wildfire. Daenerys' dragonfire may actually be the spark that sets off the wildfire. The thousands of caches of wildfire would destroy the city and Daenerys' army, leaving Daenerys with only her dragons and the unsullied forces at Casterly Rock. By destroying King's Landing, Cersei is destroying the shadow of power. Throughout the show, many characters have declared themselves king or queen, but in the eyes of the people, the one true king sits on the Iron Throne. In order to legitimize your claim, you need to take the Iron Throne, which is the ultimate symbol of power in Westeros. If Cersei can destroy both the city and the Iron Throne itself, she can still call herself queen while hiding somewhere in the Riverlands. Cersei can also steal a trick from her brother Tyrion. At the end of Season 6, Daenerys is sailing to Westeros, and her destination is most likely Dragonstone. Cersei still has access to a vast network of spies, so she will be able to predict Daenerys' movements. Cersei can employ several unmanned wildfire mine boats, like we saw during the Battle of the Blackwater, to meet Daenerys on the sea before she reaches Dragonstone. Daenerys and her fleet would be taken by surprise. The unarmed boats would seem non-threatening, similar to Stannis and his fleet during the Battle of the Blackwater. One thing we really haven't discussed is the elements. The strongest portion of Daenerys' army is made up of Dothraki soldiers who have never stepped foot on Westerosi land. They are accustomed to fighting in the dry heat of Essos, and since winter has finally arrived, the Dothraki will have to adjust to the cooler climates of Westeros. Plus, like we mentioned previously, they are unarmored and not properly clothed for the Westerosi climate. While more disciplined than the Dothraki, the Unsullied may face similar problems. They too have never stepped foot on Westerosi land and will need to adjust. You also have to take into account the size of Daenerys' army. Approximately 167,000 soldiers equals 167,000 mouths to feed, bodies to clothe, and she'll also have to keep up morale. Just look at Stannis' army at the end of Season 5. His army was a complete mess by the time he marched on Winterfell. Granted, he did burn his daughter at the stake and caused half of his army to mutiny, so let's hope Daenerys doesn't sacrifice any children in front of her army. All in all, Cersei probably doesn't have much of a chance against Daenerys, but I do think she can put up a good fight. I always go back to the House of the Undying, and that is the scenario that I see playing out. Cersei just goes full kamikaze, destroys the city before Daenerys can take the Iron Throne. AKA, if I can't have the Iron Throne, then no one can. But come on, we know that Daenerys' story is not going to end in King's Landing. In fact, it's just beginning.